Remember, the 5th of November. Congratulations, you made it here at Election Day, I don't know, E-2. We are 2 days past the most important election of your lifetimes, and it's not over yet. I'm torn. Honestly, I'm torn. Between these two great candidates, who to support, I obviously stand by my endorsement of Jo Jorgensen at this point. And it is just, wow. Yeah. You know what? I hate to say I was right, but yeah, I don't know if you guys remember, I refused to call this election because I said it was too close to call. Well, guess what? I'm still right. It's still too close to call. So I'm torn in my journalistic sense of responsibility of making sure that the Anna versus the Man audience, that you honor us with your time and attention for 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. And I know more and more from our producers club, we have people who are this is their primary source of news, and I am truly honored to be entrusted with that responsibility. Really, I am your window on the world. You know, if that's the case. And again, you know, I'd like to think that what we're able to do now, because of our incredible volunteer editorial team in our Telegram group and our producers club, that we're capable of doing that. A lot of the stories we're doing today came from the Producers Club. And if you want to join us, it's very easy. Go to AnnaVersusTheMan.com. And if you're watching this live, you've heard us rant about being censored and shadow banned enough to know that we need your help to get past the censors, not just in sharing the shows. If you're watching live now, share it. We're going to do an election update. We are going to get to some real news, but please join us at AdamVersusTheMan.com. Find Patreon.com/AdamVersusTheMan. For just $10 a month, you can join us and buy your way in. Although today, you know, this is the thing I'm torn about is, like, do I cover the election? Because it's still news. It's still legitimate news. You know, really, it's like, how much should we cover the election at this point? We're going to talk about that. But yesterday we had a contest as to what was the best news to come out of the election. And there's more stuff. There were a few things that we missed that we're getting to today. You have our positive news to come out of the first round of ballot counting, I guess you could say, that we've experienced. It's ongoing, but we do have some other decisive, positive things that we can count already very, very decisively. And if you want to win membership in the Producers Club today, we're going to do the same contest we did yesterday, but we're disqualifying the winner, obviously, at both the person, because they won. They're already a member of the Producers Club. And if you're in the Producers Club and you're watching, you can still play, because we got some good answers. Obviously, like one of the headlines on Drudge was, who was the winner of the 2020 election? Drugs. Yes, drugs across the board. Huge victory in the war on drugs for the people on them. Yes, we are winning. And we saw decriminalization, legalization here in Arizona, done all but for the crying of the drug war profiteers, or should I say, making it official. The Arizona legalization initiative passed, Prop 207, with about 60% of the vote. No one's talking about that flipping with the recounts, but the presidential race still up for grabs. So we're going to get into all of that today, and at least make sure that you are informed about the state of play and where things are right now, so that you can go back to living a productive life that includes paying as little attention to government as possible. So the contest today, and you can do this in a comment or by calling in. You can call in with a click. It's really cool. Calling into the show is amazing, especially with the technology that we have, with the software platform that we're using that CJ put together for us, our intrepid executive producer from South Dakota. And you can click the link that Jim or CJ or somebody is putting in all of our comment sections right now. All you got to is click that link. It's really cool. If you have a browser, you can do it from your phone. You can use your video. You can video call in or just audio. But here's the contest. What was the best thing to come out of the election and why? And we had a couple drug answers, but that's good. But I didn't hear a really good why answer. And the best answer from yesterday, and I think this is kind of like always true, but the best thing out of anything you do libertarian is how it gives you faith and confidence in the momentum of the freedom movement. And I know that there's going to be a lot of hand wringing about the libertarian presidential campaign of Jo Jorgensen for 2020. There's going to be a lot of second guessing, and we'll indulge that to a certain extent. But I'm not, I'm looking ahead to 2024, and I think one of the bigger lessons here for the Libertarian Party is that you have to present a meaningful alternative that's going to get people's attention. And I think that's what localization is. And the more I see it, the more I see positive momentum for localization. We got a couple news stories about that today. So give us a comment, give us a call, and let us know what your favorite outcome of the 2020 election was and why. One of the things you might say now is that the snake eating its own tail, so to speak, the chaos, the desperation of the duopoly to maintain its grasp at this point is significant, and people are losing faith in the system. So that's kind of cool to watch in real time. It's like, I feel like I'm sitting over here going, okay, yeah, it sucks. Yeah, well, whenever you're ready, you can start voting Libertarian America. Whenever you're ready, I know you've been saying that you're fed up. You've been complaining about the duopoly for fuck knows how long. Whenever you're ready, we've got the alternative right here for you. And encouraging everybody, look forward to 2022. Run for office as a libertarian. If you have questions about that, I'm happy to help anybody as a consultant to research a race, to design a rough outline of a campaign plan and objectives. And it's a project. You say, I'm going to run for office as a libertarian. First of all, you're a winner. We're going to do the cheesy, well, you didn't lose. Anytime you run on principle, you're winning. Anytime you inject ideas that help pull humanity towards a greater state of justice, anytime you stand up publicly and confront the criminality of the state, you're winning. It's not a win or lose. It's are you doing something? Are you doing something to serve humanity with a life purpose founded on love for the world? And with that, all right, we got to get the rest of our promos out of the way. I want to jump into this. There's a lot of fun news today. So if you want to support the show, share this right now if you're watching live. If you're not watching live, share it anyway. But the other thing you can do to support the show is buy our merch. Yes, we have an awesome store set up. I'm really excited about this. CJ's done such an amazing job creating every item of merchandise you could possibly want. It's all there on the website, adamversustheman.com. Please check it out. The other way to support the show, we have an affiliate marketing deal set up with one of my fellow Iraq veterans, my staff sergeant from Iraq, actually, who I can say we saved each other's lives a few times. I like to really give him more credit. I was a sergeant. He was my staff sergeant and a great Marine, a great leader in combat. And if you want to help us out that way and join us for Cigars and Sunsets every Friday evening, check out cigarfederation.com, where promo code ADAM, all caps, ADAM10 gets you 10% off your order. Don't forget to check out JSK Nugs, my favorite cigar there, because it has a 20 milligram CBD infusion. And it's, you want to talk about a relaxing experience? That's it right there. One other promo to cover. I'm kind of shocked. that we haven't had another debate yet. And our debate manager, Mercedes, is who might be making her first international visit to Gardenia this weekend. She, she's been on this and looking at makethemdebate.com, where we had our first debate set up with Dario Rahim. Was a great success. I'm really, I gotta say, I'm kind of disappointed at this point. But Mercedes is excited about the possibility now of using this as a way to reach out to Joe Rogan. And there was a rumor that that he voted libertarian. I didn't see that. Can anybody confirm that? There was he said after making fun of Jorgensen on his show with Alex Jones, just before the election, with being sarcastic and dismissive of her. I mean, I don't know what's going on with Joe Rogan. Honestly, it's there's a lot to it. Did he sell out? Did he get threatened? What's going on? You don't get to sign $100 million contract with anybody without the powers that be paying attention. And Joe Rogan, I believe, has been subject to some kind of pressure, editorial pressure, controlling his message for the last few years. So if you have CJ in the Producers Club chat says you can email him, also producer@thefreedomline.com, if you have the footage of Joe Rogan saying he voted for Joe Jorgensen. Yeah, you can win Producers Club membership that way too, just by saving CJ time. All right, so we're gonna do our let's check in with the audience. We're 12 minutes in. Comment Jim, how's it going this morning? There he is. All right, Comment Jim joining us from Phoenix. Good morning, brother.
Good morning. How's it going?
Excellent. I should say our election correspondent from Phoenix.
Yeah. Our selection correspondent.
Hey, good morning, gentlemen. I got to point this out real quick before we get away from Make Them Debate, but this is Joe Rogan's profile. And you can see that it's an unclaimed profile, but you are technically the top, Make Them Debate with Joe Rogan. The next one being this $50. I don't know who that is. Alex Epstein, Raz Simone, Kanye West is on there at $11. Hulk Hogan with $11. Donald Trump Jr. and Robert Breedlove for $10. I'm sure there's even more. Oh, that's it. That's literally all that's there on Make Them Debate. So, yeah, we are the top. I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you, CJ. And as long as you're pointing out those numbers, it's worth explaining just briefly the cool mechanism that they've put together with that website that allows you to create debates and then pledge money that would go to the debaters if the debate is completed. And if not, then you don't get charged. So you can go, get your credit card out. Yeah, I'll let you make your own financial mechanism decisions for yourself here. But whatever it is, check it out. You can pledge money there to encourage these debates to happen. And I'm kind of honored that I'm on it. I mean, it's only honored. I think we got $800 for the first debate pledged. I can't remember because I think they gave me 400 as my app, or maybe they gave me 200. We got 400. I don't know, something like that. But it was a bit more. But yeah, you're not gonna get Joe Rogan's attention by waving $126 in front of a guy who just signed a $100 million contract. So if we want to do something with this, we got to get a little more energy, momentum behind it. But Joe Rogan isn't the only target here. And now that the election's done, and debating statists isn't so much like talking to a wall as it was before, whereas before the election, even if you bought into the lesser evil argument and you talk, as a statist, you tend to tailor everything else that you want to say to bolstering that decision or justifying that worldview, and you will. I mean, I've seen and heard online and in person among individual people who are not involved in anything beyond themselves politically, and I've seen online major pundits. They do the same thing. It's this sort of sad side effect of electoral politics as we do them today.
Very sad. Craig Darty is asking, do we have a new tyrant yet or the same one?
I will
I think
answer
we're
that.
not.
Yeah, no,
Call,
we're
Colette Allen from Facebook. Hi, how are you all doing across the pond in these mad times?
well, I assume across the pond is referring to someone from
England.
the great remainder of the British Empire, but or at least somewhere in Europe. Yeah, one of the stories we're gonna do comments, and we're gonna get our election block out of the way relatively quickly here and get to some bigger headlines. But yeah, one of the stories in our election block is about how embarrassing this is for America, and it's like I'm not embarrassed. Jim, are you embarrassed? I mean, no, this isn't me. It's like if you're if you're being held at gunpoint and your mugger starts picking his nose, are you like embarrassed for your mugger? No, you're like, oh, good, he's picking his nose. He's all right.
Making a fool of himself.
Yeah, that's not. That was like the worst metaphor I could just grab. Yeah, just handy. All right, here. Are we embarrassed by this? No, because we're libertarians. Like we are. The more the state embarrasses itself, the more we are proven right. So I'm enjoying that. I'm enjoying. I've described myself as gloating. It's like the last 3 shows in a row. Man, the election does horrific things, even to libertarians. Look at us. I'm laughing with ego now. That's bad. That's bad. Real bad. But all right, Jim. What else do we have for comments this week?
I'm a status is saying the announcement of our new overlord has been delayed for a cinematic climax.
Yes. Oh, well said. Well said. Very well said, Mr. Status. Thank you very much. That's definitely a part of our election block today, is the theatrical nature of what we're experiencing.
Been enjoying some of the memes that have been going around. One of my most recent favorites is a GIF or a GIF, however you pronounce it, and it's got a boat sinking, but then it's got that input. It's got Trump doing his dance thing on the boat as it's sinking. It's hilarious.
Well, Jim, as you know, it's properly pronounced GIF, and if you pronounce it any other way, you're an idiot. I mean GIF. If it's GIF, and if you pronounce shit, I think. Anyway, all right, moving on.
I think it's got to be GIF because Jif is already a peanut butter, even though it's spelled different. You just, that'll fuck people up. We're too simple. We need
Do
to
it in a
keep
GIF.
Yeah, exactly. So Angela Cook takes a crack at the contest. Oregon decriminalizing drugs is the best thing because it's the most libertarian thing.
All right, no, that's a fair entry. But I would have been hoping for, I don't know, a little more of a punchy reason of why. Yes, I think that's a good reason to point out, and I would elaborate myself and say, kind of job, but that is it the most libertarian thing to come out of the election in terms of policy change or real electoral result, the decriminalization in the state of Oregon? Yeah, probably. And as a like I said in on the show, oh my gosh, was it yesterday? Today's Thursday.
Yeah. The
election was Tuesday. Yet we're like this, the time distortion effect of all of this. It's like, But yeah, yesterday I did a whole block recapping all the drug war progress of the election. And that was a lot of fun. And there were, like I said, a number of other steps taken. And I think all of, even though Oregon, I mean, what Oregon, what portion of the American population is that? Not much. So, did we experience some like exponential revolutionary policy change? No, but we saw a predictable continuation of what I have predicted as the electoral chipping away at the drug war. You kind of count the election cycles until the drug war is over at this point. But the Oregon measure that passed of a decrim of all drugs. When the rest of the country 2 years from now sees the sky has not fallen in Oregon and the sun still rises in the east and sets in the west, we're talking politics. It can get backwards very easily. There is going to, I think that in particular will be seen as a critical turning point in the drug war. That's very exciting. So CJ just put a link in the Producers Club chat. Hot new hip hop. I thought it was, I was about to say hot new whip hop, but no. Hotnewhiphop.com. Joe Rogan reveals who he voted for. You want to get that link on screen there, CJ, while we pull it up here? What did he?
Right? He's not going to speak after midnight.
When you're on that Addy, son, time doesn't matter.
When you're zooming, that's a good point.
I know.
That's a fair point. I think he's going to come out and declare victory within 15 minutes.
Yeah, I would imagine before he goes to bed.
Yeah, he's just going to come out. I did this one tonight. We respect Joe.
They probably give him 2 extra shots of steroids tonight just so he could be.
And now, where is Kamala and
Kamala?
I'm sorry.
What the fuck is wrong with you?
I apologize. Kamala. It's an awkward.
Biden
Kamala.
is still in the basement. They haven't told him that the election started
Yeah,
yet.
man. But
They got him in a hermetically
Kamala.
sealed chamber.
Where is he?
You know who's smiling
I don't know.
somewhere is Hillary Clinton. You know she is.
You think so? Why
Yeah.
didn't? Here's my question.
Why didn't they run her
she
again?
run?
She should
Why
have
didn't she run?
Yeah.
She's fucking incredibly disliked.
Right, but she won the popular vote last time.
Yeah, but
Dude, she could have came back
when
with
you
a Yash
lose,
Queen, her and Ghislaine Maxwell just fucking going nuts.
Yes.
She might have won.
when you lose, there is a period of time where the country's like, fuck off. It's the opposite of the bandwagon effect, like we were talking about earlier.
Mm.
Because then you're just viewed as a loser. Like happened with Mitt Romney. When Mitt Romney lost for like a year and a half, everybody's like, fucking Mitt Romney, get the fuck out of here. Because he was expected to win actually versus Obama.
Yeah, I can't believe I never knew the polling was that close with him.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
Yep. He was only up 0.3 or something like that.
That's crazy. I'm stunned by that.
Mm.
I just hope
How you
everyone's
feeling,
okay.
Tim? Are you good with this?
I'm good with it. I tend to survive. I think I'll be fine. A lot of people that I know and respect are going to be very upset, but they're generally very upset about everything.
Yeah.
So if you can't be happy, then I don't know. It's not my problem.
I voted Libertarian.
I mean, I didn't vote.
I
But good for
voted
you.
Joe Jorgensen.
I thought Joe had a shot, and I don't know who she
did.
is.
I knew she didn't have a
I
shot.
don't know who she is or what she stood for, but I was very excited about her candidacy.
Legalizing drugs.
Good for her.
Wait, did you actually vote for Joe Jorgensen?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yep.
I respect it. I've done third-party votes before.
Well, I knew California was going to Biden no matter what. And,
I did not have a
couldn't-
voting plan.
I just
That
couldn't-
was
I was looking at the whole thing. I was like, what is this? I felt
I know.
the whole thing is just.
Cumia had a great line 4 years ago. Anthony Cumia, they said something, and then Anthony Cumia went, "Listen, Trump. The movie doesn't end with Trump losing." That was a great line that he had. And everybody was like, "Yeah, okay," and he was right. And I'm just wondering now, seeing it as a movie, a weird cinematic thing. What is this? Because I was sort of convinced that this was Biden's to.
I appreciate that cinematic comment there. But it's now thinking about it, it's almost giving the whole thing too much credit to call it cinematic. It's really more of a made-for-TV shitty movie. But Joe Rogan, yeah, that's wow. Okay, rumor confirmed. Joe Rogan, at least publicly claiming he voted for Joe Jorgensen. Part of the, but this raises a new question. Are the powers that be threatening, controlling, pressuring, whatever it is they're doing to manipulate Joe Rogan, saying, well, of course, we're not going to tell you exactly who and you can and who you can't interview or what you can and can't say, but we're not, you can't have a libertarian candidate on. That's not okay anymore. Well, why, if Joe Rogan voted for Jorgensen, why wouldn't he interview her before the election? Why interview Kanye? And the whole thing about Kanye would suggest supporting Trump because, what is the effect of Kanye on the election? It can only be to support Trump, right? He's definitely going to pull, and you know, we've gone over this, and we'll see. I'm actually, I got to say, I'm a little surprised right now, although I'm thinking that when the counting is done, there's going to be a little more attention turned to how, you know, what was the Kanye effect on the election. And Rogan interviewed Kanye the week before, and I listened to it, and it was really dumb. Like, for Joe Rogan, as anybody interviewing a presidential candidate, the stuff that he let Kanye get away with saying unchallenged, and the lack of what are you going to do as president kind of questions was just, it was dumb. It was a dumb interview. I felt dumber having listened to it. So the other thing about that we see in that clip, again, thank you, CJ, for finding that and showing that and confirming this rumor for us. It sounds like, I mean, did anybody ask Rogan, you know, between Biden and Trump, do you have one you favor? And, you know, Joe's vote for Jorgensen was not accompanied by any kind of ringing endorsement. He was just saying, like, and this is, again, an important thing to consider about the system that we have now, is that he was just feeling disempowered, like his vote didn't matter, might as well cast a protest vote. And that's great. You know what I mean? We can say Rogan voted libertarian. But there's so much more to this story. I mean, I'm almost embarrassed by how much we've been talking about Joe Rogan at this point, so I'm going to stop. But it's going to be interesting how, you know, we peel back layer after layer, and maybe we'll get to the heart of this onion at some point. Jim, any comments about that in particular before we hit our election block or other contest entries?
Yeah, we got a couple people weighing in. Colleen, we already knew this, I believe, or excuse me, Colette Allen again in England. She says the same in her country. In England, you only get the publicity of the Labour Conservatives. You can vote for one cretin or another one.
Yeah, no, it's yeah, a phenomena in I think all modern bureaucratic democracies. You know, one of the things I want to point out, like this popular vote idea. I'm a little bit surprised when Trump lost the popular vote. I'm surprised that he never came out and said, well, if it wasn't for the way the system was right now, I would have won the popular vote, because in California, like Joe Rogan, shit, I mentioned his name again. Like Joe Rogan, everybody knows. Oh, CJ wants to play a clip of me. No, stop. No, you're not getting. No, that's from the episode I was on Joe Rogan. Stop. No, we're not going to go there today. No more Joe Rogan. But my point is that in California, where if you know, hey, the state's going blue anyway, like all of our electoral college votes are going to the Democrat, then a lot of Republicans just stay home. You know, if you don't, like, if you're a Republican in California, what's your motivation to vote if you don't have a local race or a referenda that you could actually possibly tip one way or another? And so right now it looks like Trump is going to lose the popular vote again. But I think he never made this point because he was kind of holding on to it. So maybe we're going to see, and I'm guessing, I'll go ahead and predict here that if Trump concedes, he's going to say, well, I would have won the popular vote if it wasn't for, you know, all my fans in California being discouraged, this and such, and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, but that doesn't even make any sense. I mean, isn't that the whole point? Is like, how before the election is even gone, are you accepting defeat and saying, well, there's no way for us to win this state? I mean, you going, and if you wanted to vote for Trump and you would rather see Trump take your state, but you're convinced that Biden's going to take it, like, I just can't understand the rationale of people not voting for who they think they want to vote for because they think it's already decided. You know, that's supposed to be the point. My vote's going to change that decision, you know.
Well, I've done some research on this, on non-voters, because it's an important thing for the libertarians. And if libertarians are going to have a breakout year, and I said this when I was campaigning, we have to do something to motivate and inspire the 40% of registered voters who consistently never vote. And I don't want to put the number on because I don't remember off the top of my head, but there's a major chunk of people in America who are eligible to vote who don't vote. And you know this, Jim, it's a lot of libertarians because they know that their vote doesn't matter. Their vote won't count. And it's just, it's not worth your time. I mean, and I don't want to make a big deal out of voting, you know, like it's a chore, you know, and I tell people like, hey, if you can do a chore that, you know, checks that box and gives us another data point, another number for the to count on the libertarian scoreboard, then do it. But don't like, you know, don't mess up your life. You know, don't in some places, government wants you to stand in line for 6 hours in order to cast a vote. Not worth it. Don't do it. Like if that's you vote by mail, vote remotely, whatever, if it's convenient. And when you look at it that way, that's why a lot of Americans, they go, you know, of all the things I got to do today. Remember, Jim, most people just aren't paying nearly as much attention as we are, and their to-do list is more relevant on any given day is more relevant than all of politics. And so then, you know, you go, well, pick up the kids, go to the grocery store, take the dog to the vet, you know, and then, oh yeah, and go vote. Oh shit, it turns out voting here now is waiting in line for 6 hours. Never mind. So I think there's a lot of that. So I feel like I got my curtain stuck under my chair in case anybody's wondering what I'm like fiddling with behind the scenes. All right.
Tony Moen agrees with you. He says nearly 100 million non-voters every election cycle. How do we reach them, Adam? I definitely agree. It's extremely important to get that voter base to hear our message.
Yeah. So again, this is the proposal that I offer the Libertarian Party with my presidential campaign. The chance to give the American people a real choice. And yes, KokeshForPresident.com is still up. You can go there. You can find the platform and check that out and get the basic understanding of the concept of that we developed as a matter of practical policy. Excuse me. And I really think you need something, fundamentally different like that to offer the American people to get their attention, to make it. I mean, like, look, I believe that localization is the best way forward out of statism. I believe that is the inevitable course of human progress. I believe that if the Libertarian Party nominates someone with a localization platform, we can not only have a breakout year, but we can also win. I believe that we as libertarians need to have a breakout year before we can win. I don't think it's likely that, unless we nominate Jesus H. Christ in 2024, that we're going to go from, a few percentage points to a victory. I think in between where we are now and electing a libertarian president, if that's the way we defeat the state at all, because it could be wrong about that too. I'm willing to admit that, in terms of how this plays out, none of these predictions can be certain, but that we have to have a breakout year first. And in order to that, we have to put forth someone who can get the nation's attention in a way that, and as much, I think Jorgensen is progress for the Libertarian Party from Gary Johnson, but even though she is a philosophically principled candidate, I think
not loud enough.
It's not just that. I think that one of the greatest weaknesses of that strategy of running a libertarian to be president, saying, "Oh, we're going to be a better president than the duopoly candidates," still has the weakness of being portrayed as more of the same to the average voter, and as socially liberal, fiscally conservative. It's the best of both worlds. Those libertarians. And that is the surest way to put independent voters out, to say no, because they go, "Oh, you're the best of both worlds. Oh, the best of liberalism and the best of the Republicans and the best of the Democrats." Well, that's still a big pile of shit. I don't want anything to do with that. And that's why I'm confident strategically that in order to have it, even if the way to victory for the Libertarian Party is a Gary Johnson moderate, a libertarian leaning, even if the way we win the presidency as libertarians is a libertarian leaning moderate, that strategically we need to have a breakthrough year first. And that localization, the platform that I've offered, is really the only, I guess other than Vermin Supremes, we're going to take your guns and give you better guns. Other than that platform, I don't think I've heard anything that represents that that checks all those strategic boxes for the LP.
Low key suggests we need an actor or celebrity to run as a libertarian.
Yeah, I would be happy to, if one of the things that my campaign team, there's still a Telegram chat for us. It's a lot more informal now, of course. One of the things they're talking about is we need to recruit other candidates to run on the localization platform. And a lot of celebrities, if they're going to consider running for office, they don't go, well, I have this incredibly compelling political idea. It's just, I'm a celebrity, people like me, and let's see if we can leverage that in politics. And okay, well, what platform would you run on? Did you hear there was a guy who would run on, who was running on dissolve the federal government in a peaceful, orderly, responsible bankruptcy process last cycle? Oh, wow, that sounds like a good idea. Let's and even if they're not celebrities, let's recruit more people as candidates to come up with their own platforms that take these strategic criteria and apply them to say, okay, well, if we're going to run a presidential candidate for the Libertarian Party in 2024, let's really take this seriously now and look ahead and consider what it'll take to have a breakthrough for the LP. So anyway, any other critical comments? I want to move on and get to our, we're 40 minutes in. We haven't even gotten our election block out of the way. So any other critical comments here?
Well, real quick, I just want to address Silenced Maj. Morning, what's up on that Producers Club? I think he was the winner from yesterday's show, right?
Yes.
So you email me, Jim, I don't know if we said this yesterday. We might have made a mistake and not let him know how to get his Producers Club. But Jim at thefreedomline.com. Email me right now. I'll get you set up. You'll be in that Producers Club lickety split. And now for the news.
Finally, the state of the 2020 election is still very hotly debated, contested, and up in the air. As we have the unofficial score right now, as per the Drudge Report, that rapidly waning in relevance news aggregator, the current electoral count for Biden is 264, needing 270 to win, potentially one state away with Trump at 214. And as you see from the numbers there on screen, the popular vote count right now, although this is very presumptive at this point, we have Biden at 50.41% and Trump at 47.96. And you see how close those numbers are, both the 50%, the edging out of the Libertarian nominee, Jo Jorgensen, and all of this is quite disturbing. And what we see right now is a contest over the states that have yet to be called decisively. So in the electoral college system in the United States, and this is why the election is kind of called by the media, is that they look at these reports from the states and they go, okay, there's no chance of this and there's no chance of this, and we know that this is decisively this state, and these electoral college votes are going to this candidate or that candidate. And so you can see on most election nights who the winner is from early reports or from exit polls. And usually at that point you have a concession speech. Of course, in this case, we've had two victory speeches. What's going on here, right? Trump has said he came out and won, and Biden has said we will win as they make this official. But right now there is so much manipulation and fighting going around over this vote count. Here with our next headline from NBCnews.com: pro-Trump protesters gather around Maricopa, Arizona counting center. And this is happening in Michigan as well. And in some places, the fight is simply saying stop the vote. Remember, before this, I reminded you all of what happened in 2000, the last time we had and I don't think it was even nearly as contested as this one. And that election came down to just Florida and the hanging chads and the recounts in Florida and my friend Roger Stone and the Brooks Brothers riot, where it was mostly men overdressed, looking like Brooks Brothers catalog models, rejects, going to election counting centers and going to like the Secretary of State's office, where they're in different places around the state of Florida, where they're recounting ballots and trying to get them to stop. You know, when your candidate's ahead, you want them to stop counting ballots. And so now we see the fight from Trump, being that he's behind, fighting for certain votes to be counted and some to not be counted. And you're like, how can you still have faith in this system? How is this not just completely discrediting of the whole thing? Now, in terms of how does this get called, what's interesting here is to see how this is going to play out in the next few weeks, because I think in the next day or two we're going to see this one more state called for Biden. Could be Nevada, could be I think Wisconsin is included in this count of 264. Could be Michigan, and in Detroit they're seeing similar Brooks Brothers riots with Trump supporters protesting outside of counting centers, and Trump has filed at least 4, probably a lot more than that, lawsuits against secretaries of state and various other officials involved in this, as he said on election night that he was going to the Supreme Court to make sure that the count goes his way. And this is the nightmare scenario for Democrats, and I think they're all on edge. Like, and by and large, it seems like Biden has won. But this is where, like, by and large, it seemed like Biden was going to have a blowout before the election. And I always said, well, maybe Trump's got an ace in the hole, and it turns out it might be a pair of aces. It might be Kanye West plus a Supreme Court Justice Barrett, who are able to decide that these votes need to be counted or not be counted one way or another. And one of these critical states ends up going to Trump. And then, obviously when he's behind 214, 264, he's got to flip some states, legally, not lawfully, legally, he's got to flip some states and have the Supreme Court say, this is, he really is, I think at this point, dependent. His only path to victory. There still is one. I know it's crazy to think like we're still at this point. There still is this possibility that he could pull out a victory, but it's a very narrow path, and I'm pretty sure at this point it depends on some kind of Supreme Court intervention. Now, there might still be, even after that, an appeal from Trump, and this is the crazy thing, is that, and this is the great fear, that he might be setting himself up to refuse to leave office until the election is settled. I mean, in a sense, in order for him to win and continue to be president, all he has to do is cast enough doubt on the election that people kind of accept him being president, because we don't know. We haven't settled it satisfactorily. So it turns out that if we find ourselves in that state in a couple of weeks where, according to state counts, they've decided and it's going to Biden, but Trump still has some pending court cases. How is this going to happen? Is Biden has already created a transition team? Are they going to be allowed to go in and do their jobs by the Trump administration? Who knows? But here I want to point out one thing to people that I think they might not get about Trump's strategic interests at this point. Not only does he want to cling desperately, I mean, obviously he has no sense of honor. He has no sense of shame. There's nothing that he wouldn't do to his advantage. I mean, he knows that he has no respect among people who only respect those with intellectual integrity or just integrity and honor in general. So there's nothing that he wouldn't do in that sense to cling to every last chance, a shred of a chance that he might have of winning. But even if he doesn't, here's the important point to keep in mind. Even if he has zero chance, he has a lot of reason, considering he has no sort of, honorable reputation to preserve. He has a lot of reason to fight all the way. And here's why. Pardons. And I don't mean for his, lame duck pardons at the last minute. I mean for himself. And I don't necessarily mean that he's going to need them, because I don't think it's going to come to that point. But there's an effective pardon that we have seen in the tradition of the presidency in the United States. And you can go back to Obama talking about the Bush administration, the Bush regime under W, and war crimes, real war crimes committed by Bush himself. Yeah, violations of international law. And Obama calling that out directly during his campaign. And then when he got elected and all the liberals were like, yeah, we're gonna hold Bush accountable. We're gonna lock him up, right? Obama came out and said, oh no, we're not looking backward. We're looking forward. Now, why does that tradition exist? Because we have created an imperial presidency that, on behalf of its corporate sponsors, gets away with all kinds of crimes constantly. So why does Obama not want to go after Bush? Because he wants to be able to get away with the same kinds of crimes. Now, jump ahead and you go, well, Trump, what did Trump say about Hillary? Lock her up. Did it happen? No. And now we know why. Because when you're in that elite super class of government officials, there's a certain political immunity that you get to enjoy. So Trump, in leveraging all of this, puts himself in a stronger position of power to negotiate with Biden. Whereas, Biden might be tempted to buck the tradition and say, yeah, Trump's going down. And there are a lot of ways that Trump could go down. We'll get back to that in a second. But if Trump is in a position to say, okay, Biden, I'll drop these lawsuits if you promise me immunity, or I'll drop these lawsuits if you make me a cabinet member, or whatever it is. I don't think that's it, but whatever it is, Trump has more leverage to increase his prominence, maintain his relevance, hold people's attention. And part of the narcissistic, drive for attention, I think, is a motivator in this as well. But in the situation Trump finds himself in, it makes sense. It's a logical play for him to resist this as much as possible. But say we find ourselves in the position of it very much looking like a Biden victory and Trump resisting it through several Supreme Court cases. It turns out that Deutsche Bank might actually be the final decider of this election. And this gets to the other motivations for Trump. One is planning a media empire if he loses, something to rival Fox News. That's the rumor that we've seen headlines about recently. But this next headline is from BusinessInsider.com. Deutsche Bank plans to cut ties with Trump after the election and could seize his assets if he can't pay back his debts. And this is one of the interesting revelations that, I said this in 2016 because, I had a little bit of insider information, but it wasn't really necessary to determine that Trump's not really worth $10 billion. And the public debate in 16 was, is Trump really worth $10 billion or is he only worth $4 billion? And it was like, probably a lot less if you really subtract his liabilities and estimate the value of his brand properly. The thing is, the value of your brand kind of goes up when you get elected president, kind of just from being the Republican nominee as he got in 2016. But the revelations with his tax returns that only came out 4 years later, in the lead up to this election, revealed that his debt was actually quite considerable. And so if Deutsche Bank comes out and says, well, here's the number. Anyway, I was thinking, and I believe I said publicly in 2016 that Trump is probably only worth a couple $100 million. And I know that you're like, well, shit, he's still way richer than me. Yeah, but on the scale of the super class, it makes a big difference. And in the scope of his lies, the difference between $10 billion and a few hundred million, that's a big difference. And as I've said from the beginning, this Trump is truly special as a candidate. He cannot be bought or sold because he's been in the pockets of the banks for a long time, really since the beginning for him. So if you get this article back up on full screen, we're going to cover the bullet points here because this is pretty important in terms of the number. The German lender, Deutsche Bank, is seeking to dump about $340 million in debt owed by President Donald Trump, Reuters reported on Tuesday. The bank could seek to sell the loans after the election or seek repayment of the money, which starts becoming due in 2 years, bank officials told the news agency. Trump's ties with Deutsche Bank have long been scrutinized. The lender has handed over records to Manhattan's district attorney as part of a criminal investigation into Trump's businesses. Trump has long denied allegations of wrongdoing in his business dealings. And if we find ourselves in that situation and then the banks go, guess what, Trump? Screw you. We're out of here now. That might be how that might be the tipping point in America going, okay, Biden's going to be president now. Now it's clear. Isn't that crazy? That could be the moment we go, yeah, Trump is the big loser here. So a couple other updates on outcomes from the 2020 election already. From Colorado, our next story is thehill.com. Colorado passes resolution to award electoral votes to whoever wins the popular vote. And this is a really interesting turning point, although I don't think that this is going to be how things play out, that we switch to a popular vote system in the United States. And the thing I said earlier about, if you're in California and you're discouraged from voting because your vote's not going to matter, right? That's the compartmentalization of the point system to be elected president of the United States was created with the Constitution, with the illegal coup replacing the Articles of Confederation. We don't have to get into all of that. But in it's the 1700s, this was a way that we could we could actually have an effective national system where you didn't have to have a system that counted every vote. Now that we have the technology to essentially count every vote, where are we with this? How ugly can it get? And it's getting really ugly, but it still serves, I believe, as a meaningful functional deterrent to vote manipulation. Because if the president were decided based on the popular vote, then there would be an incentive to steal every vote possible, or to fabricate every vote you possibly could, to have dead people voting, to vote early, vote often. Whereas with the compartmentalization, you see at least that motivation to steal votes is effectively limited to places where there's that swing effect. Now, Colorado passing this resolution to say our votes are going to go to whoever wins the popular vote. There are a lot of problems with that. Obviously, like I said, it incentivizes cheating. But if a critical mass of states go to this, you don't need to change the federal policy. And that's why you see this drive in Colorado, where at least people being willing to pass this, I at least take as a positive sign that people are rethinking the fundamentals of the system when they see how ugly, wasteful, inefficient it is in this cycle. And another one, again, challenging the fundamentals of the system. We have this headline from Fox News: Puerto Ricans vote in favor of U.S. statehood. What happens now? 52% of voters said yes in Tuesday's non-binding referendum. And it is kind of a sad state of affairs when, a victim of the U.S. federal government like Puerto Rico has, excuse me, not Puerto Ricans from Puerto Rico, Puerto Rico, when instead of saying let's have independence, let's have full rights, they say let's also be let's be house slaves too, right? Effectively, that's what they're saying. We want to be included in your club. Please, bring us closer, slave masters. I don't mean to invoke, the horrific history of American slavery to make a political point here, but what they're saying is, again, let's get tied more into the system. Let's get more privileges as citizens of the empire, as opposed to let's have some freedom, let's have some independence. So I hope that, as this is raised, again, in Puerto Rico, we see a popular positive sign that people are looking to rethink the system. Now, back to the big fight. Our next headline is from the Federalist.com. Yes, Democrats are trying to steal the election in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. In the 3 Midwest battleground states, vote counting irregularities persist in an election that will be decided on razor-thin margins. As of this writing, and yes, the Federalist and our author here, John Daniel Davidson, certainly biased. As of this writing, it appears that the Democratic Party machines in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania are trying to steal the election. As reporters and commentators went to bed early Tuesday morning, all 3 states were too close to call, but President Trump led former Vice President Joe Biden by comfortable margins, far beyond what had been predicted in the polls. None of the networks called these states because enough mail-in ballots remained uncounted that it could swing either way, but Trump's position looked good. Then something strange happened in the dead of the night in both Michigan and Wisconsin. Vote dumps early Wednesday morning showed 100% of the votes going for Biden and 0%. That's 0, so not even 1 vote for Trump. In Michigan, Biden somehow got 138,339 votes, and Trump got none, 0, in an overnight vote dump. So there's the general narrative now is that because Democrats were more afraid of COVID, they were more inclined to vote by mail, and that the delayed counts in mail-in votes are going to strongly favor Biden as a result of this. But when you see a true anomaly, 339,000 votes going for Biden and not for Trump, that's worth noting. Although, if you zoom out just a little bit, you realize that this kind of partisan hackery is really silly. And I think the American people are getting fed up of the finger pointing by Republicans and Democrats going, look, they're cheating. They're trying to steal the election, because they're both right. They're both doing that. And again, do I really want to wade into this? Do I really care? Not especially. As a libertarian, I like Trump's libertarian lip service. Feels good. But when you look at, how anti-gun Trump is compared to Biden, and the fact that government has grown so much under Trump, whereas it shrank, at least by federal budget estimates, some metrics. I'm not trying to make the case that government shrank under Obama as a whole. Don't get me wrong. Of course, government has only continued to grow. But, if Biden faces a divided government, a Senate with Republican control, that we might see some ways that government shrinks. And of course, CJ, our producer, has to pull up usdebtclock.org to point out how much the debt has grown regardless under all of these regimes. So there is this, I'm like we said as our title for the show on Tuesday, watching from a distance. We will be watching this and keeping you up to date on where this fight is going. I will do my best to not distract you with this kind of boring, meaningless minutia. But one way or another, we are at this point where for Trump, public image doesn't matter anymore, right? He doesn't really care. Because he's either going to be a lame duck president, or he's going to have a victory and be president for 4 more years and not face re-election. So there's this lame duck phenomenon that we have to look forward to from Donald Trump. And as a lot of liberal fear mongers have pointed out, lame duck Trump with his finger on the red button is a scary possibility, right? So this headline from GreenwichTime.com. Trump compared it to a late Roman emperor as contested U.S. election batters America's global image. This is a really fun insight into where we find ourselves right now. Stock markets, now this is another interesting thing. We've seen stock markets in the United States go up post-election. Maybe it's like, okay, it's over, but it's not because we have a clear winner one way or another. At least we just know that we can reinvest in the stock market. No, we're confident that the duopoly has won this election. Stock markets around the world held up on Thursday despite a looming and potentially prolonged legal battle over the result of the U.S. presidential election. President Trump's premature victory claim and unsubstantiated allegations of voter fraud. And now here we see a really dangerous journalistic, I don't know, maybe liberal piece of bullshit. Unsubstantiated allegations of voter fraud. See, Donald Trump comes out and says, see, the liberals, the Democrats are trying to steal the election. They're committing voter fraud. Yeah, that's true. Absolutely true. There are a lot of people around Trump actively trying to commit voter fraud as we speak right now. And then it's sort of like, are they trying to steal the election? This is one of Trump's clever ways of triggering the leftist media and you know, I'm sorry, you know, I said that the story was from the GreenwichTime.com because that's where we're getting at. This is from Simon Denyer and Rick Nowak at the Washington Post. Yes, that's the real source of this story. So anyway, more than back to the sentence. I had to stop with that, like, yeah, I got triggered seeing that bit of propaganda. But President Trump's premature victory claim and unsubstantiated allegations of voter fraud have been met with deep unease globally over what lies ahead for the U.S. political process and more than a little glee from America's traditional adversaries. Asian and European stock markets disregarded the prospect of a contentious and contested U.S. election result to record further gains on Thursday. But America's global image as a model for other democracies to emulate is taking yet another battering. I can't read that sentence with a straight face, can't get through it. Especially among its allies around the globe. Okay, so America's global image as a model for other democracies. Really? Really? Only in some Amero fantasy land or statist delusion does America have a positive global image as a model for other democracies to emulate. Now, the only world in which that is true is where, you know, our corporate banking god overlords are the metric for success, where as a democracy, as a why would America be a model for other democracies? If you want to serve the purpose of government, of helping the super rich get richer and the rest of us getting relatively poor, then yeah, hey, it doesn't get much better than the American federal government in terms of being the greatest racket of all time. Hard to say, the Catholic Church or the U.S. federal government, right? Historically speaking, certainly right now, the U.S. federal government is ahead. But as for the greatest exploitation racket of all time, of all of human history, yeah, it's a tough one to call. And certainly the U.S. federal government is in top contention for the honor of being, the dishonor of being the greatest racket in human history. So if you like that, if you, again, the authors reveal, or the editors, the publishers, whoever's actually behind this, reveal their bias with this ridiculous statement that saying America has a global image as a model for other democracies to emulate. Okay. In Japan, America's closest ally in Asia and a country whose post-war constitution was largely written by Americans, the slow vote count dominated television news and made for painful watching for many. The Mainichi newspaper said the events even called into question, quote, the intrinsic value of democracy. adding that, quote, responsibility for fanning the divide and amplifying the confusion lies with Mr. Trump. The National and one of the United Arab Emirates state-owned English language dailies lamented the divisions in the United States amid the coronavirus pandemic, economic crisis, and now the elections, quote, at a time when the nation should be pulling together with what the British would call blitz spirit. The streets of many cities have been setting for what appears to be the beginnings of civil strife, it wrote in an editorial. Now, blitz spirit, that's World War II invocation to the German Blitzkrieg and the spirit of the British coming together to fight the Nazis. And now that we see Nazism, I mean, the German Nazis lost the war, but what does that word? I mean, I heaven forbid that I would be the one to invoke Godwin's law, which is that, you know, the example of Nazis will eventually be used as in every online debate. Well, here it's they're invoking this with the Blitz. So what do we say? National Socialism, the Nazis. Well, the German Nazis may have lost the war, but the National Socialists or National Socialism has won, has become the dominant paradigm all around the world. We have nationalism, we have socialism, and I don't think that needs to be refuted or debated or picked apart. I know there are a number of statists who'd like to debate that, but you look at that, that's the norm. So, you know, people questioning democracy, I wonder if there's perhaps some wondering if, no, I'm wondering which members of the superclass have picked what play to try to further consolidate their power with the example of this election. As a libertarian, I'd like to think that the general loss of faith in the system is more of a prevailing dynamic than the superclass using this as an excuse to discount, democracy is so terrible. Rule by the people, what a silly, archaic idea. Let's have more rule by the superclass, right? And if that's where this goes, I would have to concede that I'm wrong about a lot of things. So I don't think that's where this is going. So one more quote from this, Tatsuhiko Yoshizaki. I just want to say that name. Tatsuhiko Yoshizaki said, quote, America has represented optimism, looking forward, and ideas. And this is, he is the chief economist at the Sojitz Research Institute in Tokyo, quote, and yet over the past 4 years, we have come to see the dark side in the United States. Is that a Star Wars reference? The same sentiment was echoed in Europe on Thursday, where Germany's left-leaning Der Spiegel News Weekly compared Trump to a late Roman emperor, set a historic standard for voter contempt. One of the paper's conservative competitors, Die Welt, chose a similar comparison. France, though, offered hopeful assessment on Thursday, saying the United States' strong democratic values would ensure the correct results. Yeah, I don't know about that, but I really do like the recognition here, because they can't of the late Roman emperor status of Donald Trump, because you cannot say that Trump can be compared to a late Roman emperor without admitting that you have to compare America, at least the American federal government today, to the late Roman Empire. And as many historians have already made this comparison, they've looked at the arc of the Roman Empire. They see that America, or maybe more accurately, the American federal government, has followed a similar trajectory and is on the point of decline. And one of the important historical turning points for the Roman Empire was coin clipping, where they actually cut their coins to basically it was their low-tech version. Oh, and also dilution of the precious metals used in their coinage. That was their equivalent, their low tech version of inflation, of inflating the monetary supply, using a monetary system being forced on people to ratchet up their exploitation. In the United States, yeah, look at the Federal Reserve. The inflation of the monetary system, or the inflation of the monetary supply in the United States, especially this year, really especially this year, would suggest a whole other narrative that is much more in line with the collapse of the Roman Empire than anything that the mainstream is putting out here. And having been an activist as a libertarian following monetary policy for 14 years now, I have heard a lot of people say, oh, the sky is falling, the dollar's about to collapse, better buy some gold, preferably from my sponsors. But I've never been one to believe the optimism of those saying, yeah, the dollar is about to collapse, because they literally have the best mathematicians and propagandists that money can buy, because they can just print money, or more accurately, create it out of thin air digitally. And now I'm pretty excited. I'm pretty excited to see this. Just another story about the international response to America's current state of election affairs from CBS.com, or excuse me, CBSnews.com, is this one from Iran. Iran's supreme leader ridicules Trump over election comments. Yeah. Iran gave its first official reaction to the U.S. election on Wednesday with the very top of the Islamic Republic's cleric-led government, the supreme leader himself, aiming ridicule squarely at Mr. Trump on the president's platform of choice, Twitter. Ali Khamenei tweeted, "What a spectacle. One says this is the most fraudulent election in U.S. history. Who says that? The president who is currently in office. His rival says Trump intends to rig the election." So this is in Tehran, where the Trump administration's policy of harsh sanctions is really hurting. A good example, on election day in the U.S., CBS News visited a lab managing the testing program for Iran's serious COVID-19 outbreak. They can't make nearly enough because sanctions have choked off Iran's access to foreign equipment and chemicals. Yeah, Foreign Minister Javad Zarif said that some of the government preferred a Biden win, as it might lead to an easing of sanctions as part of new nuclear negotiations. So yeah, it's possible that if you look at the libertarian inclination of free trade and commerce and peace and harmony among the world, that yeah, Biden could be better for that than Trump. So it really does come down, all of this, everything we've talked about now, it really does come down to this silly contest over the remaining battleground states: Arizona, Michigan, Wisconsin, everywhere out, Nevada even, and it could be Nevada with its few electoral votes now. If it is called for, Biden could decide this, and then we see we switch into the next phase of the 2020 election, which is the legal wrangling and the fight over who gets the decisive PR win that gets the majority of people in the United States to go, okay, that's the president. And that's where we are with Indecision 2020. So I hope everybody's satisfied with that as an electoral update here. Do we need a refresh, Drudge? What do we have? What are you showing us, CJ? I'm looking at the Producers Club. Sorry, go ahead.
Got a short where I can answer some questions from you. Go ahead.
I was just wondering, the Trump campaign is alleging the counting of improper votes here in Clark County. What is your response?
My response is that we are not aware of any improper ballots that are being processed.
We've not presented any evidence to reporters. Have they presented any evidence to you?
Not directly that I'm aware of.
And there's also some concern that Clark County is counting relatively slowly at checkpoints. Is that the case here? Are you counting faster than 2016?
I think it's important for the entire country to understand that mail ballots on this scale is very new to the state of Nevada. We made a decision here to provide as much access as we possibly could as a result of the pandemic. And so our processes run a little bit slower. We also have to make sure that our data is being updated because we need to prevent people from voting twice in the system. And so we have to scan those in as mail received so that it updates the database so our in-person voters can't have voted twice. We're still receiving information from our election day laptops. That'll be complete today. So we're going to update and make sure that all of the information was.
And we know we can trust this guy because he's wearing a mask while standing alone in front of him or sitting alone in front of a microphone, right? All right. I'm looking at the Producers Club, and it looks like our newest member, Brad, has joined us, our winner from yesterday's contest. So, we have some other fun headlines we're going to get to in today's show. But before we do, let's check in with the audience and comment Jim again. So welcome, Brad. Welcome to the Producers Club. Again, today we do have a leader in our competition to win membership. It is what's the best thing to come out of this? I hope after that election block of coverage, there's some other insights, and maybe someone can point out to us more compelling, positive things to be happy about right now. Jim?
Hopefully so. We haven't had any other guesses since that came along, except for I'm a statist who's ineligible CJ's got the Patreon up, so I guess we should have been doing that real quick. Okay, let me go back to the comments. I'm a statist who is ineligible for the Producers Club, says the best thing that came out of the election was the support of two degenerates the establishment propped up will ensure the next two will be even worse. More folks will join BLP.
I like that. It's optimistic. I don't know. You said, could it get much worse? There are a lot of positive things that I think, so as libertarians, we're kind of like waiting for the gifts to roll in. And one of them, like in that screen that CJ just had on, showed, I think it was in Nevada, the popular vote total was 49.5% to like 48 or 49. Anyway, it was 49, roughly 49.5 to 48.5. And then you go, okay, so Biden is short 0.5% of 50%, and Trump is 1.5 short of 50%. And most of those other 2% of votes went to the Libertarian, Joe Jorgensen. And I one of my favorite memes, I tried to pull this up, I couldn't find it. But you know that the Skeletor meme where he's going, "Joke's on you, I'm into that shit," right? It's my favorite version of that is that there's, you have the space above Skeletor and it says something to the effect of libertarians are stealing, or my statist friend says, "Oh, your libertarian candidate is stealing votes from our duopoly candidate," and then it's Skeletor as a libertarian going, "Ha, joke's on you, I'm into that shit." And I want to think that like every statist who's looking at these numbers is going, if we could have just kept the libertarian out of this election, if we could have just gotten some of those libertarians to vote for our candidate, if we had just they're covering the margin. If that 2% had went to Trump, because right now, yeah, libertarians are covering the margin. And Drudge Report is saying that Biden is at 50.41%. I hope that's not accurate. I hope he comes down under 50% in the popular vote so that they can blame libertarians. I mean, so that we as libertarians can take more credit for being the swing in this. And one of the possibilities I have to acknowledge, if I am, being intellectually honest and maintain my confidence in the inevitability of a voluntary society, that we might never win as libertarians. Never. We could win a voluntary society, which is the point, right? That's how we win. That's the goal here, and never win another election. We could simply, by being present slowly pull the Democrats and Republicans more in our direction, policy by policy, like as we see happening with the war on drugs now, until we're at a voluntary society. And if that's our role, to sort of troll the duopoly to libertarianism, to drag them kicking and screaming, even if we can never get them to give up power, that might be the way that we achieve a voluntary society. And if that's the case, all we have to really do is be that guy in the margin, be those, we always be that 1% of votes that they have to pander to. And I think the more we encourage the duopoly supporters to indulge that frustration, if we could just get gotten a libertarian out of the race, we would have won. Is that a pretty good impersonation of a statist operative? Right? I think it is. If I think back to my classmates at George Washington University in the Graduate School of Political Management, yeah, they're looking at these numbers going like, how many votes did the libertarian take from my guy? Well, joke's on you. I'm into that shit. All right, what else we got, Jim?
That is funny. I just want to point out, in my opinion, again, I kind of mentioned this yesterday, and it's almost like it's a trick that we all fall into constantly. You're sitting here literally talking about these numbers as if they're real, and they're playing their game. You know what I'm saying? I'm telling you right now, I don't find it possible. I would bet my next however many paychecks, if I ever get them, that there is not 70 million people in this country that went to the ballot box for Biden. I don't see it. I don't see 70 million people. I don't see it. That's what I think. I think it is completely fabricated, and hoping it's going to go this way or that way. You're not hoping that that's going to happen. You're hoping that they're going to tell us that's what happened, and fuck that. Screw them. It's all bullcrap. And we took way more than these margins that we're talking about. The Libertarian swung the vote in every single state, not just the few by the exact numbers they're letting us have some talking points with, And
that's why Jim is here. That's why Jim is here. Thank you, Jim. No, I that's a very important reminder, and I feel like a failure now in my journalistic responsibility in that election block, not reminding people that all of these numbers are, well, I covered it. I said there's voter fraud on both sides, having in both directions. But that to just, remind people how fake the numbers are. They are.
Do you seriously think 70 million people or anywhere close to that literally voted for Biden? Do you think there's 70 million Biden supporters of average people? Do you think that's anywhere close to how many people do you think actually support Biden? Just throw a random number out there.
Well, the way I would try to answer that question is, how much could they have possibly cheated, and where do they have the incentive, and on what scale? They can't. Whatever illusion of whatever misinformation they put forth as propaganda has to align with a critical mass of individual realities enough that it's accepted by a critical mass. Right. So if they're saying it was 70 million, it's got to be at least 60 million. I don't think
you are a very generous individual.
Yeah. Okay. See, I
think that they are good enough to turn 10 million Biden supporters into 70 million, because 10 million people spread out throughout the country is just enough so that everybody knows somebody that voted for Biden. So that gives it the reasonable doubt that, well, they do exist, I guess. There's 10 million of them spread out throughout the country just to keep you, I'm probably under it. You're probably right. It's probably higher, but that's just my extremist opinion.
No, and I think we could pick this apart with polling, and I would, Jim, lean on. I don't want to discount that possibility entirely that you put out there. That even with what I am able to do in questioning them. I mean, you know, again, how do they hide the suppression of the libertarian message by censoring conservatives and making it look like that's the narrative, right? You know, could there be another layer of deception whereby the possibility that you suggest, where the entire electoral system confidence in government is a shell game as opposed to a gross exaggeration? Woo! Yeah, it's possible. But yeah, I don't know. I would generally rely, and this is an interesting question for the audience. And so Brad B, so it's kind of like 9/11. So Brad B, our newest Producers Club member in the chat today, says, no way there's 70 million people that wanted Biden. I would agree with Jim wholeheartedly. Now, there's a few ways that we can break that down, right? Could it be 70 million people voted but didn't want Biden? Yeah, of course. It's the lesser evil argument. How many Americans bought into the lesser evil argument? How many? Because you know, a lot of Americans, and this is, you know, go do your own surveys, and there are enough out there. I would, you know, encourage people maybe over the next 24 hours, if you're in the Producers Club, let's try to answer this question, right? Let's look at some independent surveys, polling, stuff that we know is reliable. Like, is reality closer to the illusion or closer to the most extreme possible fakery situation where Jim is suggesting that and by the way, Jim, your idea that it's only 10 million Americans that voted for Biden and that was spun into 70 million, you would have to say that's true about Trump, right?
Yeah, I'm sure they're flubbing the numbers on Trump's side too. But I'll say this, and I'm gonna have to go throw up and then brush my teeth afterwards. But I felt like in the beginning that I see a lot of Trump support. I do see a lot of people tricked by Trump. So he does have lots of support. I think the support of the country is split between him and the libertarians. And the false narrative that's being sold is the libertarians are business as usual and the Democrats are surprisingly doing well this year for whatever reason.
So I love the debate that this is already provoking in our Producers Club. And this is a great question that we as libertarians should have a good answer for. So I'm gonna take, because like as a libertarian, as an analyst, commenter, journalist, whatever, I do take a certain pride with Anna versus the Man in that we ask more important fundamental questions. And I'm going to finish my comparison with 9/11 here, and then I'm going to read some of these comments out of the Producers Club chat because these are really important. And you know, how big a scale is the delusion? So when you look at 9/11, you look at the 9/11 Commission report, and you go, "This is not true. There's no way. We can disprove this general narrative quite easily." And with great certainty, and say, you know, what are the odds of this being accurate? Insignificant, less than 1%. What are the odds that it was? You go to the other extreme, right? In this realm of possibilities of 9/11 was, you know, they flew hologram airplanes and missiles, and you know, it was you know, the buildings never existed in the first place, and it was all TV illusion. You know, like you can go to some ridiculous conspiracy theories in this that are plausible, right? But you know, the same sort of likelihood. And so, Jim, I would say that about, you know, we have to look at this question with the same kind of analytical approach as I generally take to 9/11, which puts me in the realm closer to Richard Gage's opinion, as we interviewed a month or two ago. Great interview, definitely worth going back. If you missed it, check out our interview with Richard Gage, Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. And by the way, getting past this election, I'm looking forward to getting more guests on with more fun stuff. So if you have ideas, you want to help our booker, Marcus at thefreedomline.com, standard spelling, Marcus. Please help us get some more guests. Send us your suggestions and ideas. So the question now is, how far off from reality are the vote counts? So to our producers club, a couple comments to share here that are very important and insightful in this. Obviously, Brad B, again, no way there's 70 million people that want Biden. I agree with Jim wholeheartedly. Nick Berryhill, I believe Biden got, now, so here's the counter argument from Nick. I believe Biden got 70 million votes. There are some dumb fucks in this country. Like, oh.
Solid argument, but I don't think there's that many that
Now,
are that.
right. Now, yeah, so is it that many, or is it exact? Well, so here's the thing is, we know now I think Nick's statement here can be kind of disproven by what we know about voter fraud and cheating in general in the election, right? In that we've seen, so it's definitely going to come down some from 70 million in the final actual analysis, right? But his general point, like, there are a lot of dumb people. There are a lot of people who, and I don't want to say dumb Americans, because that's not fair. What would be more accurate is that there are a lot of Americans who have done a dumb thing in general, which has fallen for the racket of the duopoly, right? The general racket of government as we know it, the statist paradigm. And if that means that the majority of Americans are actually led to vote for a duopoly candidate, that's a reasonable possibility. Again, these numbers do still have to be checked. So Brad says, I'm sure you got a substantial number, no doubt, but Joe's numbers are way too low for this to be real. And you look at that and you go, yeah. I feel, conflicted on this one, having looked at the initial numbers and seen something like 1.1% of the national vote turnout for Jorgensen, and I have to admit some statist, or it's not statist, but I have to admit a little emotional weakness here, Jim, is that I was emotionally affected by that, and I got to go. She definitely did a scale better than that, right? And any comments to that point? I'm going to keep going on the Producers Club, but I don't want to, I want to encourage people in our Producers Club as well to generally be commenting where other people can interact with it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Fina Benoan, Biden getting 70 million votes proves the Electoral College necessity. I'll let you tackle that one.
Well, I think she's referencing my point earlier about compartmentalization of an election into regions. Makes it sort of reduces incentive for cheating and makes it harder to cheat significantly. And this is where I want to point out my general take on this question, which is that because of exit polls, because of independent exit polls, they can only cheat so much away from reality and still maintain their credibility and still be believable. And because of that, I'm still thinking that my initial response to this question, that maybe it was like 60 million and it was exaggerated into 70 million, maybe more like 60 to 65 million, and it was exaggerated somewhere on that scale. I think that's still most likely to be correct. The thing I don't have any beat on at all is how much Jorgensen's votes were cheated downwards. And because we don't have the resources or just the general attention and desire, or market demand, so to speak, for scrutiny on that, I don't think we'll ever have a good answer.
Yeah, and that's the point, I think, for both of the arguments is that that's how they get away with it, and that's why I firmly believe that it's way less than your 60 or 60 million, because there's no real way at the end of the day for us to prove or disprove it. You say they can only go so far from reality, but think about it. I mean, all these hundreds of millions of people in this country, and when we're having these votes counted, they all count. Yeah, there's people counting and there's people watching those people count, but then they send those numbers up, and eventually those numbers get sent up again, and those numbers get sent up again, and eventually somebody tells us what the official numbers are, and there's no way for anybody to prove or disprove otherwise in reality without going to every single place in live time. It's impossible to literally.
Okay, so to the Joe Jorgensen question, I want to share this comment from Nick Berryhill with the sort of negative counterpoint. Jorgensen didn't have name recognition or get media attention. And so I'm going to bolster that, and then I'm going to dismiss it, because it's you could look at Gary got 3.28%. You could look at how much media he got, and you could look at I mean, again, if you accept the 3.28% number with Gary to begin with, and then you got to go back and like do that whole analysis all over again. But did Jo Jorgensen only get a fraction of that media attention? Yeah. Did she have anywhere near Gary Johnson's name recognition? No. And so this would be like what a statist would tell a libertarian trying to get you to believe how low these numbers are. And I have to point out, in order to dismiss this negative counterpoint, the possibility that Jorgensen got, like Jim is I'm taking the position, somewhere on the scale of 8 to 10%. I think that's on the outer curve of the outer edge of the curve of possibilities. But I think we can say with confidence that Joe got something more than what they're saying. How much more? Again, I don't have a beat on that, and I really welcome the audience input for this question. Jim, let's just go back and forth.
Here's an input related to that specific question from Fina again. I knew 0 people who voted for Johnson, and I know many people in my family and friends circle alone that voted for Jo Jorgensen. I'm the same way. My brother, I finally got to vote for libertarians. I've seen nothing but memes and Jo Jorgensen groups saying that they've gotten family members they never would have got to vote libertarian to vote libertarian. There's a lot. Nobody's really debating that the number is higher than they're telling us. It's just how much, and we'll never know. It's impossible.
Well, we might be able to. I think if we do take this on as a challenge, as part of this question, how much is the vote the actual vote been? How much has the actual voting been misreported by government officials in the totals here and manipulated? How much have both Trump and Biden votes been exaggerated and have libertarian votes been undercounted? I think we can come to, with a certain analysis, I think we can come to a reasonable conclusion and say, with 90+% certainty, we believe that that Jorgensen actually got whatever, I'll just say X number, somewhere between 1 and 10%, actual votes. So let's have the conversation. Let's go back and forth on the comments here. But I got a few more from the Producers Club. CJ said, if everyone is blaming libertarians, then everyone should know who Jo Jorgensen is. So that argument is not true. I'm not sure which argument he's referring to, but I that's a great point. And we should encourage the duopoly to blame libertarians. And that is definitely a big silver lining, that we can be enjoying right now, is that even by their numbers, Joe covered the margins in a way that, libertarians would have thrown the election one way or another. And that'll get the name ID. Although, I don't know, CJ, the counter argument to that in sort of what is the actual effect on the American people? Are more of them going to hate and dismiss the Libertarian Party? And does this give the throw your vote away argument more credibility for 24? right?
I was wondering that myself when they threw the numbers out there. It was almost eerie how close it was. Like Jorgensen got 50,000 votes and Biden beat Trump by 40,000. So it was like literally so close to make you on the edge of your seat. You know, it was almost comical. And I wondered if they were going to do that so that in 4 more years they could post memes of those and say, see, this is this is what happens if you vote third party. You'll swing this candidate. That they'll use it as evidence to that argument, which will be ridiculous then as it is now, if we even have another election in 4 years.
All right, so a few more comments from the Producers Club. Brad says, nowhere near where she should have. That's true. We definitely pushed her name in every way we could, though. You know, and this is, again, I'm waiting to draw a judgment or make any conclusions about the campaign until I see a more thorough analysis and read some accounts from insiders. Like maybe we'll have our friend, my former manager for the campaign, Elijah Gitzarelli, on here soon. He was very involved as a regional coordinator. I think that was his senior title with the Jorgensen campaign. But does that grassroots, did we have more grassroots engagement? I mean, I promoted Jorgensen actively on social media and with the show, whereas with Gary Johnson, I really did a kind of passing endorsement by comparison, because I didn't want to invest in a message that misrepresented libertarianism. What was the weight of that this cycle? Who knows? Mercedes says, got to look at the demographics because in the big cities, they do. So when Chicago has 4 million people and they all vote for Biden and every major city does that. Yeah, Mercedes, I think you're right in pointing out that we do have to look at cities and Democrat manipulation in cities as a part of this analysis. However, you're from Nebraska. Have you even been to New York City? Like, they really are fucking liberal. Like, have you ever been to Seattle, San Francisco, Portland, Los Angeles? I mean, even Denver, even Phoenix. If you think of Arizona as a state with a libertarian streak, no, even in Prescott, Arizona, non-locals call it Prescott. It sounds weird even saying it like that now, but Prescott, Arizona, about an hour south of where we are. Flagstaff, Arizona, an hour west of where we are. They're really fucking statist. Like the people who have chosen in America today to live in big cities, and even in cities at all, really. They are dominated by liberals. I don't think you can deny that reality. Now, how much does that translate into votes for Democrats? Different question. Next comment from the cheap seats there, Jim.
From the cheap seats, let's see. Tony Moen. I also believe that a lot of Gary's votes came from Republicans who could stomach voting for him over the disgruntlement over Trump's nomination.
Interesting theory.
Low Key 209 says America does not want libertarians. We are the question and we are the answer.
Yeah, so I don't want to get too caught up in this conversation, but I think this is more fun than anything else we have to cover today. So we'll keep going with this, and I would remind everybody that we still have a contest open to win membership in the Producers Club by telling us what you think the most positive outcome or result of the 2020 election has been so far, and why. What's our leading answer at this point, Jim?
Let's see. I believe that was Colette Allen, and she said the Oregon decriminalization of drugs because it was the most libertarian thing that happened.
And did you see in any other comments? Did she confirm? Is she British? Where is she commenting from?
She's from England.
From England, not just from across the pond. Okay, great. Now, so we would get to add another international member to our Producers Club if nobody beats her out on this one. That would be great. So we're going to come back to these comments, but I do want to at least do go like, wait, what headlines was I going to cover today? Wasn't I going to get to some real news? Again, make sure I'm doing my journalistic responsibility. We do have a lot of great stories that we are going to get to, some positive stuff. But I guess headlines that I got to cover that are really urgently newsy. Let me just breeze through a few of these. BBC.com has the headline, COVID-19 warning over tough fines as new lockdown begins. Maybe we'll have Colette call in tomorrow from across the pond and let us know from our senior British correspondent from across the pond, what it's really like on the ground experiencing this. But it is worth pointing out that there are a handful of countries around the world that are still dealing with a coronaphobia response, going into stricter lockdowns. Just to read a couple sentences from the story, people who seriously flout new lockdown restrictions in England will face steep fines under the rules. People have been told to stay at home, and non-essential shops, pubs, and gyms ordered to close. Households are also banned from mixing indoors or in private gardens, unless in a support bubble. That's what they're calling them now. There's support bubbles. Yeah. Currently, there's a 200-pound fine for each breach, which doubles on every offense up to a maximum of 6,400 pounds. And organizers of large gatherings face a 10,000-pound fine. Oh, yeah. Oh, my heart goes out to everybody around the world who is dealing with that. I'm not going to get into this story, but I do want to point out for people for whom this might be immediate. Oh, Colette's already weighing in. It's awful. Yeah, thanks, Jim.
Yeah.
The Daily Beast has this headline: China's United Front has worked behind the scenes for decades to convince Taiwan's elite that their country should welcome a takeover by Beijing. Just want to let the audience know we haven't missed that story. If it's relevant for you, you might want to look into that. But that's the other sort of timely headline today. Now, within the United States, we've seen a general slowdown of coronavirus-inspired tyranny headlines, but it's still happening despite the lack of motivation to manipulate the election one way or another. And in New York, we have this headline from ABC: Coronavirus News, Governor Cuomo ends quarantine list, switches to testing plan for visitors. So moving away from the tri-state travel advisory, and will now require people coming to the state to test negative. The newly unveiled quarantine policy will do away with, anyway, now mandates that anyone visiting the state must test negative or quarantine for 14 days, with the exception of residents from contiguous states, New Jersey, Connecticut, and Pennsylvania. So yeah, scary to see the policy fluctuate this way still in the United States. We will get to an update for our friend John McAfee, who was apparently pumping crypto from prison, denying tax fraud and murder charges. We will get to Twitter censorship, the state of censorship in the United States, and the lawsuit with 15 huge YouTube creators that they have filed against YouTube for violating the First Amendment. We have a couple stories. We're going to have to do a block on expatriation sometime in the next week or two. There are a lot of Americans going, fuck it, I'm out of here. And maybe you want to get Gardenian citizenship. See, that's our other promo. CJ, we got to include this in our daily routine stack from now on with everything else that you can visit us here in the Garden of Freedom, the soon to be officially, formally, fully sovereign nation of the Garden of Freedom. And you can check out our ever growing, beautiful gallery and see what this place actually looks like. Yeah, we're kind of heavy on kitty photos at the Garden of Freedom on Instagram. Thank you for that, CJ. Of course, there was going to be more, I hate to say it, of course, we're not done with the election. There's going to be more of that. One more news item from across the pond from Newsmax.com: UK to pilot new COVID-19 mass testing approach in Liverpool. And, maybe we'll talk to Colette about this tomorrow, but for the mass testing schemes, there's there's definitely some news to get into with that. And we had this story shared from our friend Joey Lee, GI Mary Jane, from her website at Platoon 420, charmcitycanada.wixsite.com. FBI raids California councilman's home and city attorney office on suspicion of weed industry extortion. The FBI conducted a raid at a Compton councilman's home in Baldwin Park City Attorney's Office last week on suspicion, should say, that council members were involved in extorting money from legal cannabis businesses in the area to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars. We will be staying on top of that kind of corruption as we follow the turning points from the beginning of the end of the war on drugs to the beginning of the middle of the end of the war on drugs, which I think is what the 2020 election represents. Now, one other thing, CJ said he had a new store promo he wanted to share. CJ, you want to jump on stage and do that before we get back to our contest and comments about this? So he has this on screen: Producers Club members and Better patrons. And Better is one of our tiers. If you look at patreon.com/Adam versus the man, that's $10 a month. If you're in the Producers Club, basically, get 15% off and free shipping at our store at adamversustheman.com. So thank you, CJ, for getting that up there. Back to the comments here, back to the contest, back to this question. Nick wants to point out, and Jim, here, Jim, you and I have had this experience together of going to Walmart at a busy time. I think you and I have gone together both to Prescott, where we would have expected a more libertarian, conservative, COVID skeptical population, and Flagstaff. And while Flagstaff has been consistently worse on this point from my recent experience, you and I have both been the only two people in a crowded Walmart not wearing masks.
Yeah. Definitely.
If that's a proxy for the vote counts, then they're pretty accurate.
Yeah.
So I got this from Nick's comment. He said, just look at everyone wearing masks. People will believe anything. And if you take Walmart and again, obviously indicators and anecdotal evidence here, but if you take that as an indicator that in certain circumstances, only 1% of people are not wearing masks, that might be the percent of people who voted for Joe Jorgensen.
Yeah, but also you have to take into account, which you have pointed out before, that would be a prescribing everyone in a mask to believing into all of that propaganda. And we all know that the majority, I think, of people wearing masks are doing it just because they don't want to be yelled at. They don't know nothing. They don't want to rock the boat, so to speak. They don't believe in this crap. They just think it's acceptable loss for them. They don't mind wearing the mask. They don't believe in the crap. They just don't mind wearing the mask as an appeasement to retarded people. But that doesn't.
As Mercedes
all of
points
them are
out,
retarded.
As Mercedes points out here, she says, "I like my mask. Thanks. People don't know who I am when I'm in one." And there's certain libertarians who have taken this as an opportunity to just, oh, it's okay to be. Let's have this privacy experiment now that it's normal. Now people don't, because one thing that is critically shifted here is that before Corona, if you wore a mask in public, that increased the scrutiny that you were subjected to. Now it's the opposite. So it can actually be an exercise in privacy if you want to take it as that, and some do. Now I don't want to hack this point apart anymore. Is Walmart and our masks, a fair, proxy for any of this? No, but they are an indicator that would suggest you can get most people to go. You can get basically the government can get everybody to more or less go along with something like this. And if it's voting for the duopoly, it would at least suggest that, could it have been that the actual votes are only 10% of what they said and that they completely exaggerated it? To bolster my original position that it's somewhere in the realm of, how much is the manipulation? I think it's more in the realm of a few percentage points. rather than a scale of exaggeration, like you were saying, that maybe only 10 million is exaggerated.
100% fabrication.
Yeah, right. So Brad says at least 5%, even if she skirted by. Festerfink says, look at the rallies. Biden had crickets and Trump had a fucking event of thousands. Even Jorgensen had rallies with hundreds. I hosted one of them. The media refused to show up, though. Festerfink, exactly, way more than Biden. So what else do you have for comments there on this point, Jim?
Well, Colette points out that her neighbor got fined 400. Is that pounds or euros? Which one do they use
Pounds.
there? I don't know what
Yeah.
the symbols mean.
Yeah, as I understand,
internationally ignorant.
right? As I understand, even as a member of the European Union, the UK maintained the British pound as an independent monetary system, as opposed to going fully to the euro, and it made it easier for them to step out with Brexit. I might be wrong about some point in that, but
Okay, I don't know. Well, whatever it is, one of
they're
her
on
friends
pounds
got
now.
fined 400 for talking to someone in her garden. I wish that was on video. We got another guess. It's a lengthy one, but it's another suggestion. Somebody's challenging Colette for the Producers Club with their answer for the most positive outcome from this election. It's Tony Moen, by the way, on Facebook. Most positive outcome from this election was that the state dropped most of what little veil was left. Millions more than ever will before are now woefully aware of the destructive effects of centralized power. This creates an environment that allows our message of localization much easier to help others understand and support.
Yes.
He threw in localization as an extra, hey, I should win the Producers Club, I think.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think we can call this contest now and say, let's give it to both of our serious entries. That Colette and that last one. Those are both great. But back to honoring these Producer Club comments here. Mercedes, unless you trust the Secretary of State sites, and then you need to cross-section the precinct reporting, and then exit polls, then polls. After, we have no way to determine unless all ballots are paper. None. And it's like, yeah, this system is deliberately confusing. Hence, the sort of self-destruct cycle. I hope it is entering in the snake eating its own tail. But anyway, Festerfink says, what if they are counting libertarian votes as Biden votes? And I go, ooh, now here's an interesting dynamic you got to consider, is that between Republicans and Democrats, they care a lot more if they steal votes from each other, but they don't care nearly as much if you steal votes from the libertarian, right? Who's there in this process to defend the libertarian votes? And hardly anybody compared to the poll watchers for the old parties, obviously. So I would say to Festerfink, it's yes. What if they are counting libertarian votes as Biden votes? They are. They are also counting some libertarian votes as Trump votes. How many? That's what we're trying to answer here. And as Mercedes pointed out, we will never have 100% decisive answer to that. But I think we can have a reasonable range of possibilities with some confidence, at least.
Cage match for Producers Club membership.
Yeah, from across the pond. All right. So any other comments like that, Jim?
No, that's it. No, we're all caught up. Oh, wait, one more. I'm sorry. Fina suggested maybe we should just flood the ballots and not say a word next election.
Yeah, you know what? I would, if I'm the nominee of the Libertarian Party in 2024, I will at least say that I would consider the strategy of, let's play the cheating game harder than the old parties. Let's just be blatant about it. If they're going to lie and cheat and steal and murder in order to maintain their racket, then by golly, we can play them, and we're going to play politics, and we can play the manipulate the vote count game too. If we accept that the odds of, again, let's go for a realistic goal in 2024 for the Libertarian Party. And I don't want to say let's not go for the win between now and then, but if we don't have a revolutionary, serious paradigm shift between now and 2024, it might be the better strategic approach to say, let's focus on the achievable goal of having a breakout year for the Libertarian Party. So with that being said, thanks for co-hosting and bringing all these comments on screen today, Jim. Remember, you can join the Producers Club for $10 a month if you go to AdamVersusTheMan.com or Patreon.com/AdamVersusTheMan. Congratulations to our 2 winners of membership today. Don't forget, you can also support us with merchandise at by buying merchandise at AdamVersusTheMan.com and buying merchandise with merchandise by wearing it, promoting the brand, and helping get this message out there. Either Adam versus the Man or the Freedom logo for the book Freedom at thefreedomline.com. And then, of course, support our affiliate marketing program with cigarfederation.com. Join us for Cigars and Sunsets every Friday here in Gardenia. And promo code ADAM, all caps 10, gets you 10% off there, cigarfederation.com. And of course, make them debate. Let's make some debates happen. MakeThemDebate.com. And please visit us in Gardenia by going to Instagram at the Garden of Freedom. With that being said, it's been a fun show. I'm even with the election not over, I'm in a much better mood already. Thanks so much for joining us. Mwah. Peace and love, y'all. Choose happiness and be excellent to each other.